Hello, so this is part 2 for the object-oriented programming using a real-world example. So in the previous video, I talked about a real-world example, which was Winchester University's merchandise shop, and I talked about different classes. I identified different classes. What I've done here is I have created a class diagram. I'm not going to go in detail on how to create class diagram in this session. I have just created a very simple version of it. I have not defined any multiplicity or any data types in this class diagram. This is just to show you the concept so we can get it to implementation. I could have done inheritance as well here for staff if I wanted to add a manager and and other type of staff members. However, I've just created a Boolean variable here, or I will be creating a Boolean variable to check if this person is a manager or not. So what I've done here for staff, I've created attributes that the staff member will have a full name, a staff ID, and I will just check if that staff is a manager or not. The functions for this example that a staff can do is sell merch and update their own name. And then for merchandise, I have a merchandise type. That means, is it a shirt, is it a coffee cup, or so on. It will have a price, it will have some form of description, and finally I've added color. Now the functions for merchandise, I have added that you can add a merch, you can update its information, you can view its information, and then I've also created a method called getPrice. You can create getters and setters for all of these attributes. However, the reason why I have specifically specified getPrice is so I can get the price and multiply it by quantity if I need to do so. So then I have customer. So a customer will have a full name, and for customer I've kept it very simple. I can create a customer and get their information. Finally, there's bill, which will have a unique code. I have what item in that bill has been purchased, who is it purchased by, so which customer has purchased it, and who is it sold by, so which staff member sold it. For bill, I have two functions, so either you can create a bill or you can print a bill. There's an additional thing that I will add in this class diagram, and that would be quantity. So what is the amount of merchandise that's been purchased? Is it 1 cup? Is it 2 cups? And so on. For this code implementation, since we have not studied arrays or array lists, I am going to assume that a person is going to purchase only one type of merchandise at a time. So for example, they'll be able to purchase a coffee cup type at a time. However, they can buy multiple quantities of that type of merchandise. So for example, they can buy 2 or 3 or even 4 cups of merchandise. Okay, so I will move on to the code now. So now I have Winchester Merch Shop project in IntelliJ. So I've just created a new project. It doesn't have any files in source folder. So what I will do, I will create a new Java class here. So as in my diagram, I had a staff class, so I'll create that. Then I had a customer class, so I've added that. Then I will add a bill class, and then finally I will add a merchandise class. So now I have all these classes available. So for each of these classes, I will start adding my attributes and functions that I created in my class diagram. Okay, so now I'm going to start coding. So the first thing that I want to do is create attributes or fields. So I'm going to keep all the attributes private so I can update them safely using either getter or setters, or use methods. So the first one that I'm going to make variable is going to be, or attribute is going to be, merge type. And then I'm going to create price, and I'm going to keep it as double. And the reason why I'm keeping it as double is because price can have cents as well. So it can be 19.99, for example. So that means it will have a decimal point, or 1922. And then I'm going to create private string description. So that means I am going to add some description for this merge, and then I'm going to have a color for this. So now I'm going to make a constructor. So there's two ways of adding data to a class. So either I can create add and update methods like I showed in the class diagram, or I can use a constructor. So constructor is a special type of method, you could say. This is always invoked or called whenever you create an object of a class, and that will create it and allocate the object space in the memory. It will always have the same name as of the class, so and I'll keep it, and it will be public, so you can create it using the new keyword. I will call it merchandise, as that's the class's name. And to create this merchandise and add the data, I will ask the user to input the parameters. So, for example, I would like user to tell me what the merch type for this merchandise is, what would be its price, and what would be the description of the merch that needs to be added. And then finally, its color. Now I'm going to use this keyword. So this keyword is used so you can refer to this current class's instance variables. So I say this merge type. So the user, the data that user has passed from using the parameters, I want that data to be assigned to the class's instance or class's object. And then I do the same thing with price, and then for the description, and then finally for color. So what happens is this is a parameterized constructor, so it means it has parameters. So every time I use the new keyword and I call this or I create the object for this class, it will ask me to provide this data. You can create an add method and do that. However, it makes more sense that when you want to create an object and it does require these things, and these are compulsory, then I can just do so with using a constructor. If I want to update these details, then what I can simply do is create a method. As once you've created a class with the new keyword, you can't update information using constructor, as that is only when the class's object is being constructed. So I will create public void method. That means it doesn't return me anything, and I'll say update merchandise, and I'll copy paste this as it's going to be exactly the same. Now here I could do that update merch only. So here what will happen when I call this method, it will require the user to update exactly everything. So if you want the user to update, for example, only the description, then you will have to create a method called update description. Or you could also call it a setter. So that means set or update description. and that means you will be using this dot description, so the class's variable should get the value that the user will be providing. And now this is my setter. Okay, and if I want to get this information, what I will do, I'll say public, and then because this method will return a value, so I will say public string get description, for example. And then here I will just say return this description. So here, because I don't have any parameter, if I don't write this keyword, then it would automatically show me IntelliSense and identify this description variable as the one that's defined in the class. So now here I have getters and setters. I'm not going to create all of them at the moment. I'm going to just show you some examples on how this works. So now I have update method to update the information. I have merchandise constructor to create it. I am, however, going to create a getter setter for price. Now it's giving me error because it cannot have the same name, so I'm just going to update this. I'm going to say get price. I'm going to return price here, and I have to change this string to double because it is going to return price now, and it is not a string type. Similarly, I will say set price, and I will pass a price. Since this is a parameter, you can give it any other name as well. You do not have to give it the same spelling as of the classes. So I will say this dot price and price. That is a parameter. The reason why this gives me error is because price is defined as a double, and here I am passing it as a string. So I need to make sure that all the data types are exactly the same as well. Okay, I hope this is clear. So now that I have created my constructors, my methods for merchandise, I will move on to the next class. Okay, so now I'm going to create, same way, I'm going to create my customer classes information. So I will create a private string full name, and then I am going to create a getter and setter for it. So I'll create getter and setter for this information, and then I am going to also create a constructor. So I will say public customer, and so similar to as I did for the previous class, I'm going to ask for a string full name. And so whenever this customer's object is created, a full name is required. Okay, so I'm not going to implement any setter here. That's because I'm already creating it. You can create update full name method here, but I'm just going to do get information. So public void actually string get information, and I'm going to return full name. So here at the moment I'm getting information. I could also write it as get full name, but in my class diagram I actually mentioned that I would create a get information method. So what I can do for that, let's say I don't only have name, I also have customer's address, for example. So what I can do, I can create a method which will get me all of the information of the customers. So I can say void, because I don't want to return anything, I want to print information of the customer. So here what I will do, I will say system dot out dot print line, and I will say customer full name, and then I will ask I will get the class full name variable, and then I will do the exact same thing, but instead of customer full name I'll say the customer address, and I will say this dot address. This will get me the address of the customer. So whenever I call this method, what it will do, it will get me the information of that object of the class. Okay, so I will move on to the next class now, and this one is bill. So for bill, what I said that there is going to be a private string bill code. You can have this as a number, so I will actually create it as a number so I can generate random numbers. So every time a bill is created, it creates a unique number, for example. And then I have quantity, so I have private int quantity. Now here the important thing to notice is that in my diagram, in my class diagram, I will just open it here, I said there's going to be a purchased item, who is it purchased by, and then who is it sold by. Now I can't keep these as strings. The reason why I'm not going to keep these as strings is because, like I said, classes can also be, you can also define classes as a custom data type. So that means it is a data type, so purchased item is actually a merchandise that's going to be purchased. Purchased by is actually the customer who's purchased it. Sold by is actually the staff who has sold it. So instead of creating strings, I will create the classes. So for example, customer data type, and I'm going to say purchased by. So who is this purchased by? And then I'm going to create staff, and then I'm going to I will create a staff field, and I will say this is going to be sold by. So who is this this item is sold by on the bill. And then finally I have private merchandise. So what item is being purchased? So I'll say call it purchased item. Now if you see, these are actually going to be my objects. So I could have written a customer name here, but because these do not have any values defined here, these are going to be initiated, or I'm going to create these objects using new keywords, but I'm going to do that in the constructor. So I'm going to create a constructor public bill, and what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to ask the staff to provide me a bill code because I want to auto generate that. So here I will add, so I'm going to create a random number for bill code. So I'm going to say bill code value is going to be random. Okay, so to create or generate a random number, I'm going to use a library. So I'm going to use Java dot, and then I'm going to use a math library. And now that I have the math library, I'm going to use math.random. This will return a random number. Now this returns a double value because it says it's found double, and this bill code is an integer. So what I'm going to do, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to actually make this string. It will also make it a little bit interesting. So now since this returns random, I am going to convert this into a string. So I'm going to say double.toString. So this, what this will do is it will convert the double value and convert it to string and then pass it to build code. But I will also add something else to this, and I will call this build code. So I'm just concatenating whatever random number comes out, it converts it into string, and then also adds build code to it to make this. So for example, the final build code is going to look like, let's say 001. It doesn't have a, yeah, it does have a dash, so it will have a dash, and then whatever number comes out of it. It can be anything. Okay, so every time this bill is created, it's going to generate a build code, run a new build code, and then I will ask the user to provide me who is purchasing this item, or who's for whom is this bill being created. So I'm going to write purchased by, and then I'm going to say who is creating this bill. So here I can say created by even. Remember, these are parameters, so I can name them whatever I would like. And then I'm saying which item is being purchased, so I can just say purchased item. And then I can say this dot purchased by is equal to the purchased by provided by the user, and then is sold by the person who's actually creating this, and then finally I have this dot purchased by. Okay, so oh, it's not purchased by, it's the purchased item. Okay, and now that I have this, so this means whenever I create my bill, I have all my information here. I also needed to add quantity, so I will say how much of this item is being sold. Okay, so now I have used all of the attributes. I've created the constructor and I've passed all the information needed, and then finally now my bill is complete. The one more thing that I need to do is print this bill, so I'll create a method called I'll call this method, and I'll say public void print bill. You can make this as beautiful output as you want to. I'm going to keep it simple just to show the concept, and I'm going to here add the bill code, and I'm going to concatenate it with the bill code variable. And so I want to add one more thing. So what I'll do, I'll complete this. So, and how much, so I'll say first purchased item, or call this purchased merchandise. And here, what I will do now, this dot purchased item. So now what I'm doing, I'm trying to print an object. Now remember, this is an object, it's not a string, so you can't concatenate it as you would with a string. Because this is an object, so it's part of the class merchandise. If I go to this class, I need to access or print these details. So what I can do, because I do not have a print method here or a return information here, I can actually create a print method here. So I can create a method and I could call it public void print merchandise information. And here what I can do, I can print the information that's needed, and I will, for example, print the merch type, and I will say this dot merch type, and then I want to add description. So I'll say merch type and I'll say description. I do not want to print it in new lines, so I'm just adding it in just concatenating it in one go. And I say description and I say this dot description. So I have all of this, and I also want to have quantity, price, and then I will add, and I will have to convert integer dot to string because I would like to convert the price. So this dot price, I believe this was double, so I will have to use double dot to string rather than integer dot to string. And now that I have done that, I will add the string variable for this so that it looks presentable. So I'll say price. Okay, so now I can also, if I press enter here, what this does is it will break it to the next line and make it a bit more readable. So now I've printed a line where I'm saying merch type, which is string. It's going to print as it is, and then it's going to get the object's merch type that's stored, the description, and then finally the price. Now that I have created this method, what I am going to do is when I go to the bill, I'm going to print, so I'll say this dot purchased item dot print merchandise information. There we go. So I'm going to print this, and it's going to print the information that was stored in this object. So that means I don't have to get all of the data and then print it here. I could do that, but I'm just going to use the method that I've created for this object. Now I'm going to say purchase quantity though. So what is the amount that's been bought? And I will call the quantity here, that how many items have been bought. And now I also need to calculate the total price. So to calculate the total price, I'll say total price. And what I have to do now is that I have the quantity, and I also want to multiply this by price. So this dot purchased item will have its own price. So that's why I created the get price method. And now it will return me the price for this purchased item and the quantity which is in the bill. And now I need to convert this into string. So I'll say double dot to string. So whatever value is calculated by multiplying quantity and purchase get price, I will convert this into string and then concatenate to a total price string and print it on the line. So now I have bill code, I have the print merchandise information, I have the quantity that's being purchased, and then the total price. I can also add information of the staff. So like I said, I can also create, I can get the information from these objects and print them here. So what I'm going to do, because I've showed you how to create a method of each of these for these classes and then call them. I'm going to now directly get the staff's information. So this is sold by, and I do not believe I have created anything. Okay, I've not created anything for the staff as of yet. So I'm going to do customers then. I'm going to say purchased by, and I have get full name, and I can just print the customer name. So now this is a getter as well, so that means I can just use this to get the information of the customer, and I will call this customer full name. Now I have the bill code, I have the full name, I have the merchandise information. All I need to do is complete the staff. So what I will do, I will make this for now, for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to make it exactly as customers class, and I'm going to just amend some features, as I'm not going to add any address to it. I'm going to rename the constructor, because this is going to be staff's constructor. I'm going to make this as staff full name, and I also said if this is a manager, so I'm going to add a boolean value that is this person a manager, and when I create the staff I'm going to say is this person a manager, and here I'm going to add semicolon. I'm going to say this dot is manager equal to the user provided data. And okay, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to create update staff name here. However, I am going to create cell merge method. So I'm going to create public void cell merge. So what cell merge method will do is going to sell the merchandise. So in order to sell a merchandise, I need to have the merchandise that I'm going to sell. So I'm going to create a merchandise parameter, and I'm going to say merch item that is being sold, and who is it being sold to, so which customer is it being sold to. So I'll say sold to, and now I will, so when I sell the merch, basically what I am doing is creating a bill. So here where I have said all this information, I'm going to use this bill, I'm going to create this bill constructor, or construct this bill object here, or I could pass it here. So I can say the bill that's being passed, and what I could do here is I could say print out the information and say that printing bill, and once it does that, what I can do is bill dot print bill. And finally, when I print this bill, that means it's going to go to this bills method and it's going to print all this information. And that's it. So what I've done is I have created a small program that has staff's information, which can, it's a slightly different to the class diagram, and that is okay, as sometimes things do change when you're creating the program. And so something that I created while doing the video, so it's understandable that things have slightly changed. So for staff, I have full name is manager information. I've not utilized this anywhere, but it's just showing you different data types that you can use within a class. I've created a getter, I've created some methods. Similarly, I've done the same for merch or merchandise, and then I have done that for customer, and then also bill. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a program class to run my program, as it's nice to keep everything neat and clean. So now I'm going to create a main method. So public static void main. This is going to be used to run my program. Let's see. Okay, now that it's done, now let's start creating some code to execute this program. So I know, like I said in the scenario, that I have two staff members called John. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create staff. So I'm going to use the staff class and create object, which was John. And I'm going to use new keyword to construct this object, and it requires a full name, as that's what I passed in the constructor. That's what I wanted to ask in the constructor. So I've declared it already, the parameters. So I'm going to provide the full name. So I'm going to say, for example, John Doe, and then the second parameter is this person a manager? So for example, here I will say it's false. And now that I have said false, I am going to complete this. So that's my staff created. Now I want to create another staff. I believe I called it Mary. And then I'm going to do the same. And I'm going to call it Mary. And I'm not going to give her last name for now. And is she a manager? I'll say true. Now that I have my staff, I want to create the new customer, who is Alice, who walked in to the store. So I will say customer, and I will call this object Alice, and I'll say create this new customer. And now it will ask me for a full name, and I will say Alice. Now that I have created customer and staff, I want to create merchandise as well. So I'll do that before the customer walks in, as you need to have merchandise in your store before you open the store. So now I will create a merchandise. I'll use the class merchandise, and for example I will call this coffee cup, and I will create the merchandise, and now it will ask me for all the information. So I say it is a coffee cup, and then I will call this I will give this a price $19.99, and I will add description. I will say reusable coffee cup, and then finally the color, and I will give it the color purple, as that is Winchester logo's color. Okay, now I have the coffee cup. I do the exact same thing, but I now do that for merchandise. So you can have as many objects as you want, but you need to make sure that their names are unique. So I will create a t-shirt merchandise, and I will call it t-shirt, and I will say this is 30. You can define units in the class, but for this example I have not added any units variable, and I will call this t-shirt in white color. or actually I have the white color, so I'll say in medium size, let's say, and I'll call this white. Okay, now I have the merch information and I have the customer. Now I have to sell this. So let's say Mary is the cashier here. So what I want to do, I want to create a bill. So I will create a bill and I will call it bill for Alice, and I will create a bill class, bill object, and it asks me who is it purchased by. I pass Alice in it. Who is it created by? I say Mary created it. And then it asks me what is the purchased item. I say it is coffee cup, and finally asks me how many quantities it. So I'll just say, for example, Alice has bought 2 cups. Now I want to print this bill or generate this. So I say Mary, who has the access to selling this to the till, so she can actually print this bill or enter this data to the system. I just simply pass the merchandise here, which is the coffee cup, and then the second parameter is who is it sold to, and the bill. So I just say bill for Alice. So there's one thing that I see that there's some redundancy. So for example, I'm creating a bill and I'm passing coffee cup here, and I'm also passing this here. So I don't need to do that. So when I'm selling the merch, the bill already has information: who is it sold to, who is selling it, and what kind of item is it. So what I will do, I'll remove all of this. I will just say that Mary prints this bill or sells merch for this bill, and I will go to the search sell merch method, and I don't need this information here because I'm simply just printing the bill here. So I have already all of the information for bill provided when I have used it, when I've created the bill for Alice. So now let's run this program. So to run this program, as it's not added the IntelliJ configuration, I'm going to right click and I'm going to click run program. So now it's trying to compile. Okay, so let's see. I have an error here which says, okay, so it seems that there is a syntax problem. The compiler wants me to have this as a small letter. Okay, now it recognizes this. So if I click this button, it should be able to run now. It's just building it. And it seems to be working. So what it did, I didn't print any information when I created these objects. So it said printing bill because I called sell merch method, which had this line to print it, and then it also used it to print the bill information. So it says what the bill code is. It's a random decimal number. We can update this later on to not have a decimal point. And then there's customer's full name, the type of merch, and its detail. It's 2 quantity, it multiplies it, and it returns the value. So I hope this made a bit sense. The best thing I would suggest, if this is not clear, is to practice and try solving as many small examples or problems that you can to understand and practice this object-oriented programming. If you have any questions, feel free to message me and I would be happy to respond. I will share this code on GitHub as is, If you want me to update this, just let me know and I'll add those features as well in it. Okay, I hope this made sense, and take care.